Good morning and welcome to another episode of Catholics at Home. I am Mag and it's such a beautiful day today, isn't it? Now, that song was brought to you by the Children's Choir from St. Ignatius Church. And the only thing that kept playing in my mind all the time was the fact that I went to a school where that whole line was actually printed on our school badge. So I was from MGSKL, and thy word is a lamb unto my feet was actually printed on our school badge. So it kind of brought back loads of memories of being in school. Well, that's me at least, yeah? Anyway, good morning and welcome to the show. How's it going for you this morning? I want to thank you for making time to join us here on Catholics at Home. We want to welcome you from wherever you may be watching us from, and especially if you're watching us through your own diocese this morning, whether it's from the Malacca Johor Diocese, the Diocese of Penang, or even the Diocese of Miri. Thank you so much for joining us this Saturday morning. Now, weekend mornings normally bring back memories of my childhood. Okay, so Saturday mornings, my mom used to be very strict. So Saturday mornings meant we would get up early, and every one of us had household chores to do. Clean the toilets, mop the house. There's so many things that we used to do in the morning, and then in the afternoon, it was a nice family time to watch Bollywood movies. And on Sunday mornings, church, catechism, and then brunch. Okay, so for brunch, we normally look forward to a Western breakfast where my mom would actually make it for us, and we love that. Okay, we love that so much. So weekends normally bring back a whole load of childhood memories, and I would like to know about your childhood memories as well. So why don't you share it with me too? Okay, so just type into the comment section below and let me know what weekends remind you of. Okay, what kind of childhood memories still strong in your minds and you still think about it every time the weekend comes about. So in the meantime, while you do that, don't forget to like, comment, and share this post as well so that we can reach many more people through the Catholics at Home podcast platform. Yeah. And while you actually type that through, I shall bring on our Catholics at Home resident priest, the one and only Father Clarence Devadas. Good morning, Father. How are you today?
Hi, morning, man. I'm well, thank you. You're
So I
talking about
asked our
Saturday mornings, huh?
Yeah, I asked our viewers about their childhood memories, right, Father? What about you? I mean, what do you remember growing up as a young boy on weekends? What did you have to do?
I think Saturday morning was like sleep-in day. So you don't have to get up early
Really?
to, you
So
don't have to get up early to
lucky.
go to school. I've always been, yeah. For me, it's always the morning session. So
Okay.
sleep in a little bit, and then yeah, of course. And the other thing is breakfast. Because on the other days, you don't have time to have a proper breakfast. So mom will make a proper breakfast, whatever it may be. And yeah, that was nice. Of course, yeah, household chores not much, but I remember that growing up, school shoes you have to wash and dry
Yes.
them, and then
Scrub
you
it
have
yourself.
to
I know washing machine.
no washing machine, and then you have to. I don't know whether people remember. You have to blanco your shoes. You know,
Yes.
then you have to get it ready for Monday. Yeah, those little things I remember. Yeah, quite
You
fun.
know, I think we had very simple childhood, right? I mean, when we were kids, we didn't even have the internet growing up. Well, some of us did, but it wasn't as fast, advanced, and as efficient as it is today. Today, the internet allows you to do so much more. And the children of today, I would have to say, are pretty much a very fortunate bunch. But, with the internet, it has made things so much easier for us. And, well, this past 2 years has proven just that, isn't it? I mean, the pandemic has forced us to pivot. We had to go virtual. You had to have online presence just to be relevant. And I think our children had similar experiences as well. They were not spared. They had to learn online, they had to socialize online, and they had to connect to the outside world through the cyber world as well. So how much online exposure is too much? We're going to talk about the cyber world and our children this morning. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the comment section before we actually bring on our guests, the experts who are going to walk us through our topic. So we've got Kenneth Jeremiah who says, co-curriculum day was on Saturday. I remember those. But it wasn't like every week. It was like, every fortnight at least. So my mom would still make sure that we get out early in the morning and start scrubbing the toilet. She ran the household very strict. It's like, we were like in the army. So that was pretty much our weekends. So I think it's time for us to bring on our guest. Father, what do you think?
Yeah, let's bring them on, Meg. It's a very important topic. I was just, as you were saying that, I was just thinking the playing field has changed. I mean, literally.
Absolutely.
I mean, for us on a Saturday or a Sunday, we were out there playing on a physical field.
Correct,
But now
correct.
the field is actually a screen. The
Yeah.
playing field has changed, and I think it's an interesting topic that we want to talk about how it affects the development of children, and what are
Mm.
some of the dangers that parents, and pitfalls that parents should be watchful of, especially. I mean, we had different kinds of danger when we went out to the field. I mean, we just played, and we got hurt, and we came back home, and we survived. Things
And
are
we
very
tried,
different
we
now,
were
isn't it?
holding some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are very different. So let's bring on our guest this morning on Catholics at Home. We are welcoming Dr. Fam Jia Yuin, a lecturer at the Department of Psychology of Help University, and Shamir Rajadurai, a crime prevention specialist from Prevent Crime Now. So they're going to help us clear the air a little bit about our children and the risk of being too exposed to the cyber world. Welcome, Dr. Fam, and also to Shamir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mag. Thank you very much, Father Clarence, for having me, and Dr. Palm as well joining the show today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitations to join the show.
I think we should thank you for, spending your Saturday morning with us, But your opinion matters, and we normally like to hear from the experts. So let's dig right into it. Is the cyber world a safe place for our children?
Well, I think moving forward, the cyber world is an important, and it plays an important role in the development of our children. Is it a dangerous place? Well, everywhere is dangerous. Like I think Father was just sharing earlier, you go to the padang, you play, you fall down, you hurt yourself. The same thing goes for the internet as well. But of course, with the internet, you're exposed to other types of dangers. I'm not going to say it's an extremely dangerous place because I don't want parents to think, oh no, their kids shouldn't use the internet at all. But it's necessity to be part of that internet, to be part of the internet world progressing forward. But also, I think with anything new, there are always risks to it, and there are always a lot of threats. So I think as parents, it's important to take certain preventive measures, or just be a bit cautious about your children's activities online.
Dr.
Yeah, I
Pham,
want to
anything to
echo
add?
with yeah, I want to echo with Shamil about the points. So actually, we can see that the nature of the cyber world has changed a lot since the past 30 years. Like 30 years ago, when we talk about the media, actually we are looking at the televisions, we are looking at the radio, which are somehow naturally safe. But for now, it is quite a mixed finding. Whereby on the bright side, actually, we can see that the cyber world do offer us a lot of content. So it do offer us educational content. For example, I do learn a lot from the internet. I learn about some skills. I learn about some research, for example. So we learn from the cyber world. So do the children. They learn from the cyber world as well. However, there are also a lot of threats, or I should label it as a potential threats for the children. So parents should be very, very sensitive towards the potential threats that are pointing towards their children.
Okay.
When you talk, sorry, when you talk about children, and I'm always very amazed at these things, and I do not know whether how we are wired is so different. Sometimes parents do brag to say, "Oh, my 3-year-old or my 2-year-old knows how to use," and a lot of us don't. Is it something to do with the environment, or how they perceive things? Younger people, like most of you say, that it's not something that you can run away from. You cannot protect. I mean, we ourselves can't protect ourselves from the internet in the sense that we need the internet for so many things. We do, literally, the pandemic has plonked us in front of a screen for not just you're not talking about 5-6 hours. Sometimes it's 12 hours. People are there. But how are children wired in that sense, Dr. Pham? In the sense, how do they perceive things with regard to the internet? And is it their learning skills are different from a generation before?
Well, I will say it is a slightly different skill that we have learned a generation before. Because nowadays we are talking a lot about the digital skills. So we want children who are sensitive towards the cyber world. They know about the data, they know about analysis, they know about how to search for information. Well, as compared to many, many years ago, when we want to learn something, what we do usually is we go to some bookstores to look for some reference book, or we go to the library, or we are just trying to, try and error to achieve the goals, right? But nowadays the children are very smart, and there are a lot of resources that are available in the internet, and they will know how to search for information, and they will learn all kind of skills through the internet, right? So somehow parents need to be a little bit careful here, because as I mentioned, children has a lot of information, a lot of resources. So parents need to be more sensitive to what resources are the children getting from. Sometimes, well, even parents, even adults like us, we fall for the fake news, right? So what about the children? So we can't expect the children know about all of the filters, right? So somehow, we parents, we should somehow, like, to some extent, we could help them to filter a little bit of the unnecessary stuff, for example.
Meg, I wanted to ask you, Meg. When
Yes,
he's talking
Adel.
about sourcing information, I don't know whether let's see whether our generation is close enough or not. Probably not, lah. You or the others. You don't know whether you remember there was a time when there were salesmen who'd come to your house and want to sell Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and then you could pay every month. Every family, that was like the thing. Every family in the showcase there would be this. I don't know how many 20 volumes of That was our source of information, isn't it?
Correct. But I didn't have that, Father. My parents didn't buy it for me. So what we had to do is normally go to the library and read it. So we were more resourceful in that way lah. We had to go to the library or refer to our reference books and all that, so that we make sure we got our own. But my dad used to work in a printing company, so whatever reference books that he could get, and he would get those that were imported, he would bring it home, so that kind of helped us as well. So yeah, I would consider myself lucky in that way. All right, so back to our conversation this morning. Now, both our guests have mentioned the risk. So, what are the risks of having our children on the internet, whether it's prolonged hours or unsupervised?
Okay. Actually, there's been some research done on this, and what's interesting is that 70% of children between the ages of 17 to 18 have like accidentally encountered online pornography. Not that they were looking for it; it was actually encountered while they were doing homework. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
sometimes the risk to it. 70%. But of course, not just Malaysia; this worldwide, and that's one part of them stumbling into online pornography. But what's even more alarming is that 20% of all internet pornography involves children. So that's the more alarming part, is that you've got the sexual predators online, and you've got pedophiles who enjoy watching child pornography, and that entails about 20% of online pornography, which is, I think, even if there's one video online, it's bad enough. This is your 20%. So to me, these are some of the risks if you're talking about online pornography. It's not that they go looking for it, is that they stumble upon it, and that's how easily it's access to pornography is. So that's one of the many risks I feel online. Of course, then you've got other things like hacking, cyber grooming, or many other things, fake news, like what Dr. Fam just mentioned earlier. So these are some of the basic things that you would stumble online, or some of the basic risks that you would face online.
Okay, Dr. Fam, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I do agree with the Shamir points about all of those external threats that might reach our children. So all of the materials or the resources actually are all available. So when we are browsing through the internet, it didn't actually filter for our age. So the computer itself didn't know, is it an adult, is it a children. So somehow it will put all of the information to all users, regardless of the age. So those are some external risks that our children might encounter. But not to forget, there are also some internal risks as well, which is in terms of the psychological risks. So,
Okay.
Well, well, there are many studies. I mean, there are many benefits of using internet, right? So, but it may be a bit problematic when it comes to excessive use. Like we are spending a long hours sitting in front of the computer to use for internet. Well, for example, we all agree that vitamin A is good for our health, right? So it's good for our vision, it's good for our immune system. But what if we go with overdose? When it comes to overdose, it will actually lead to some negative impacts as well, such as a cracked lips or dry skin, or it may even damage our liver. So the same thing applies to the internet. So when children are using a reasonable amount of internet, it's actually good for them. It's good for them to learn things. It's good for them to socialize. They will have some entertainment as well. But when it comes to long hours, it will lead students to, I mean, the children to the addiction part. So I believe there's not many things that I need to highlight here about the addictions, but all of us should be aware that addiction is a harmful thing, right? Especially for children. So, generally speaking, as a general cutoff point, American Academy of Pediatrics do suggest that parents should limit the screen time for children to about 2 hours per day.
2 hours per day.
But
As
school
it
is
is, their
but
school
school but
alone
school is 6 hours.
5 hours,
School is
6 hours.
6 to 8 hours. That's
Yeah.
that's interesting. How do we? I mean, and here we are, Meg. I was just thinking as you're saying, here we are podcasting online and getting people to come on, spend 1 hour with us. 1 hour is gone. You have another 1 hour to catch up with other things.
But
No,
after
but
this,
I
the
would,
children will say, I don't want to watch Catholics at home. They took away my 1 hour already.
no, but Dr. Pham, I remember this many years ago studying this. You talk about Erickson's stages of development. I think there are 8. I think if I remember, or I'm not sure how many. I think it's 8. With the dawn of internet, has it changed? Has the stages of development in young people changed because of the kind of information that they're getting? For example, I said a lot of information that we would have gotten, or at least, okay, sorry, I'm a different generation from you all. I would have gotten it maybe when I was 16 or 17, but those kind of information now is available to a 7 or 8-year-old. Does that change the development, their psychological development? Is there something to be concerned about?
Yes, Father. Definitely, the internet somehow affects the development of the youngsters nowadays. Like for young children and adolescents, actually, we are looking at the development of self-identity, which is how do they see themselves as a person. So with the widespread of the internet, I wonder widespread is a good word, but yeah, we are all browsing on the social medias like Facebook, Instagram. So do the children, they are browsing on it. And when they're browsing through the social media, they are exposed to a number of good photos, those photos from the celebrities, of course, with some photo editings. But all those photos actually will give a sense of perfection or the beauty about our body image, for example. So all of this will somehow affect for the children. So they are going to think that, okay, I'm actually having a high BMI because when I look at the celebrities, their body shapes are so perfect. So all of this will actually influence them as a person somehow.
Okay, so I've got more questions on that one, but I'm going to track back to what Shamir was saying about accidentally coming across pornography online. So I think a couple of years ago, there were news that was released about videos that were quoted to seem like it was children's videos, but actually there were hidden messages in it. So how do we identify what is actually good and what is not? Because when we look at it, we say, okay, this is meant for children. It is allowed, right? Especially like since YouTube now allows for children's videos only, and they actually censor off certain things. But sometimes there are hidden messages. What do we as parents do when trying to get rid of these things, or what shall we look out for, or what can we look out for?
Well, I'm actually quite familiar with some of the videos you're talking about. I think the biggest problem with that is I think we need to look at it from this way. YouTube and all, they have AI filters and all, which basically filter out content. If it's inappropriate, it doesn't go on. But these are how smart sexual predators are. They have done this subtle messaging in their videos, which even bypass most adults. Nobody really thought about it until somebody started pointing out, hey, this talks about this, hey, this talks about this. And the reality is that there's no foolproof way of protecting our kids online. There's no foolproof way of protecting ourselves online. The minute we go online, we are at certain risk. But I think where it becomes very important is for us as parents to filter content ourselves. If we are going to say, okay, you want to watch this video, just say Wheels on the Bus, let's just make sure that that video, which is a 2-3 minute long video, is actually appropriate content. So instead of just letting your kid just click, it's important for us to filter it ourselves to see what's appropriate and what's not.
When you talk about when you talk about the dangers, Shamir, I know in your experience as in crime prevention, perhaps you give us some concrete examples that you have seen, how people fall into internet. The word I'm looking for is, they kind of get tricked into these things. Are there some examples that you could give?
So many. Which one do I pick? Okay, so one of the few things which happens is, of course, let's talk about pedophiles. For those of us who are not familiar with what pedophiles are or who pedophiles are basically adults who prey on underage kids for their sexual pleasure. And how they do it is it's actually very smart. A lot of them they actually genuinely befriend this child and slowly convince the person that it's okay to do certain things. Kids being kids, sometimes they also like having a few secrets. So they'll say, hey, this is friendship between us. This is our secret, our little secret. Once in a while, then say, hey, hey, take a picture of yourself and send, then the person will take, I also will take. So it progresses from there. But what they really do is to build that trust at first. Is to build that trust with that child, so much so that they are able to manipulate that child into committing this sexual act. Slowly it becomes a nude photo, and then from there, the minute they get hold of that nude photo, that's it. You don't send the next one. I'm going to tell your parents you send this. I'm going to show this to everyone. So those sort of things. And once I got a call from someone, a similar thing. And what the person said was, if you don't send me more photos, I'm going to post this on YouTube. So they said, what do I do? I said, let the person post it on YouTube, because YouTube is going to take it down immediately. You cannot post obscene content on YouTube. But you see, kids, they don't know this, or teenagers, they don't know this. The person is so scared, oh no, what if it goes on YouTube? Everybody can see. I said, don't worry, it cannot be seen on YouTube, because the minute you post it up, it's going to be taken down. So that's some of the things they do. So the minute you get, it's blackmail at the end of the day. It's blackmail. One of the examples would be to blackmail a child. Another would be to really convince them that this is okay. Don't worry, this is your body growing. This is how you, become an adult, so on and so forth. But don't worry, this is our secret. I will take care of you. Those are some of the things which are said. So just a very quick example on some of the cases that I've seen myself.
That becomes like a Stockholm syndrome as well, isn't it? I mean, eventually the child trusts you so much that you think it's okay to do this, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we've touched a little bit about sexual grooming. We've also spoken about psychological in terms of feeling that you're not good enough because you're comparing yourself to what's available online. So, I would have to say that these are risks, or rather dangers, that we don't normally see. It could also come in the form of cyberbullying, inferiority complex, exploitation, like Shamir said, and extortion as well. So, what do we do, or what can we do to avoid this?
I think many parents, when we are looking at the problem of internet, many parents will only look at the time spent on social
Yep.
media. So when we heard complaints from the parents, actually, most parents will say things like, oh, my kids spend too many hours in front of the computer. Not many parents actually care about the content that the children are using. Not many parents care about the other side effects of social media towards their children, right? So, but sadly to say, actually, the time is not a good indicator of the problem from the internet. So, for example, if you want to say force your child, For example, you force them to reduce the time spent on the social media, for example, because of they spend too many hours, right? So you limit it to 2 hours per day, so say for example. But yes, you might be able to reduce the time spent on social media, but inside the mind of the children, they're still thinking about the social media. They are like strategizing on what I should do next, what I can do next, what I should do tomorrow, what I should say, what I should search, for example. So it is actually not solving a problem at all. It only reduces the time, but the problem, all of those problems, like the cyberbullying, their psychological impact, is solved nothing about that. So I think that parents should be more sensitive about the potential impacts of the cyber world, such as the addictions, or I think the Momo challenge that Mac mentioned just now. So parents should be more sensitive towards these issues rather than just looking at the problem from the perspective of time only.
But even if they don't go online, I was just thinking, as you were saying, for example, video games. When I was growing up, video games, it was Nintendo, just two buttons. You're doing little things with a small screen. Now video games are so complex in that sense. How does that affect their development? Because the way I read is that when you hear about all these mass shootings, these people who do this, and if you read a little bit about them, they were all into this very violent kind of games, shooting, killing, destroying. How does that affect, and should parents be concerned? What's the right age for them to play this kind of games? I mean, you're not talking about making words. You're not talking about Monopoly. Now the games I can't even keep up with the games, but it's all about shooting and killing, isn't it?
Yes.
Dr. Fam?
Sorry,
yes,
go ahead,
definitely.
Doctor.
So there are a number of benefits of playing games, I should say. For example, like last time, like Father mentioned just now, there are only two buttons. But for now, I think they will use a combination of different buttons, which is actually good for the motor skill, I will say, for the young children. They learn how to control their fingers, right? So, but on the bad side, actually, there are a lot of research which says that yes, actually, the more you play for violence game, the more you're exposed to those contents, you increase the chance for you to be a bit more aggressive. For one reason, it is because of the dehumanization. So when you are playing with the shooting games, you're killing the NPCs in the online gaming, for example, it will give a sense that those human, they are no longer human, they are just an object. It's just an NPC. So when the children are exposed to long hours of gaming, it will somehow dehumanize. They are going to treat human as an NPC, even in the real world. So for them, there's a possibility that while they're exposed to long hours of violence contents, they are likely to treat human as just objects. So killing a human is almost similar to tearing off a paper. So that is the dehumanizations. But I also want to highlight that as well. Well, we tend to say that as well, playing for violence game will make you into a violent people, right? But playing a cooking game will not somehow make you into a chef. So we should be what we should concern is about how the children are being exposed to the contents. So how are they thinking? How it will affect their development? So I will not say playing violent games is always wrong. Playing those shooting games is always wrong. But somehow we need to have a little bit of control. We need to have a little bit of filtering. We adults, we have to explain to the children of what are the dangers, so that they can distinguish between the virtual world and the reality, so that they will know what is right and what's wrong.
I just
Shamir,
like to
you wanted to say something here.
Yeah, actually, just to add on two things. One is, of course, the cyberbullying we were talking about earlier, and also just to talk a little bit about the gaming issue. I'll start with the gaming issue. I think, like what Dr. Pham said, gaming is not necessarily a bad thing, but too much of it can dehumanize a person. And I think there was a question by one of our listeners, Aaron Pao, as well. He asked, is the Malaysian government doing anything to resolve the issue of gaming addiction in Malaysia? I think back then, maybe at our time, I'm not that old, but when my time, when I used to game, up to now I game once in a while, but it was not a money-making industry. Now it is. At 17, 18 years old, you can be a multi-millionaire just by gaming. You've got Dota competitions, you've got COD, you've got Counter-Strike, all these multi-million-dollar industry. Esport is suddenly a big industry. But I think what's important is, like Dr. Pham said, there is a little bit of balance between it. And if we look at it, you think, okay, we shoot people and all, But that is no different from us watching Tom and Jerry. You see, you know, they shoot each other, they start hitting each other, and it's funny. That is funny content. Why is that okay? And why is shooting somebody on the internet, on the game, wrong? It's the same thing at the end of the day. That's why bullying happens as well. When we were younger, of course, there's no cyberbullying. There's physical bullying, and you see a kid getting hit, everybody laughs. Why? Because that's what we were taught in cartoons and all. Popeye, you see Brutus getting beating, or Popeye getting beating, all these sort of things. And when it comes to cyberbullying now, I think the biggest mistake that we make, and I hear this so often, and it's one of the most annoying things I hear. Oh, you're getting bullied online. Stop going online lah. Delete your social media. No, that's not a way of handling it. That means you're still enabling the bully to do what he's doing, or what she is doing. If somebody is a bully, either physically or in the online space, they need to be corrected. You don't tell the victim to stop going online. It's like telling the victim, oh, you're getting bullied in the padang, don't go to the padang. No, you go and fix the problem with the child who is the bully. So I think the biggest problem is that we always enable bullying because we don't want to deal with the bullies. That's one of the biggest problems. And when it comes to the issue of gaming, I think a bit of moderation is good. But also now I do believe you can actually make a good living out of it. So I'm a little bit on the fence of it. But to me, it's also because I used to game a lot, and I don't believe I'm a violent person. But yeah, I think a bit of moderation would actually solve this issue.
I'm always asked the question. Sorry, Mac. I'm always asked the question. I'm going to ask this question. How young should they be playing computer games? Because I always said I don't know. I mean, I'm not a gamer at all. I don't even know how to handle this. With so many fingers, you give me 2 buttons, I'm more able to handle. You give me so many buttons,
But then you can still play Tetris. 2 fingers.
my nieces love to play with me because they will always beat me. So I'm a good loser. So I can't handle. But how young it is? I mean, how young? Because there is social pressure now. Everybody wants, like you mentioned, like COD, or I don't even know what the other games are. Fortnite. You hear these things youth mention. I can't even understand. But how young should they be exposed to something like this? Is there a rule from the studies? I mean, Dr. Fam or Shamir, from your experience?
Well, I do. I think this question is associated with one of the very, very common questions, whereby many parents actually asked me before on what is the best age for us to give our child a smartphone. What is the best age for them to own a smartphone? So I think it's a similar question. But sadly to say, actually, there's no clear answer for this one. So as I mentioned before, there are actually benefits and disadvantages of using the internet or using smart devices. So for example, the benefit of using the devices at a younger age will be definitely they are more familiar with the digital skill, because as we have learned, the digital skill is getting more complex nowadays. So it is always good for us to expose them to the digital skill as soon as possible, right? But of course, there are also the threats, as Shamir mentioned a lot about the threats. So somehow the parents have to seek a balance in between. So parents will have to judge whether the children are ready to own the devices. Are they ready to be exposed to those contents? And of course, parents are not going to just use the smartphone, use the devices as a parent, whereby I'm not sure whether you heard it or not. Nowadays, we are calling it as a smartphone parenting, whereby all parents do is they just throw the smartphone to the children, and the children will be quiet for a few hours. So that is definitely not a good practice, right? So we are not supposed to just throw the smartphone there. What we should do is we should moderate. We should explain to the children on the topics, the issues. So we should somehow like guide them so that they're on the right track and not going to the darker sides.
Shamir, anything to add? No. Okay. All right. So moderate them so that they don't go to the darker side. That's very interestingly put, Dr. Fam. Now, you're watching us on Catholics at Home, and if you have a question, please feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Of course, don't forget to like and share this podcast as well, so that many more people can watch it later on. And because it's on Facebook and YouTube, even if you miss half of it, you can watch it back from the beginning if you just joined us. Yeah. Now we're talking about children and the cyber world. So we've spoken about the age and all that. And I just have to, Dr. Fam was saying something when it hit me. It's like if you give your child a smartphone to keep them company while you do your work, it's not called smart parenting, because the word smart. So yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, okay, if anything happens to our children, what are some of the signs to look for? I mean, how do we know something is not right? How do we know that they've been affected by something they've seen online, or something they read online, or something that someone said to them while they were online? I mean, what are the signs to look for?
I think I have a few things that I can share on this point here. So as I mentioned before, many of parents, what they are looking at is on in their time. So by right, parents should look beyond the time. It's not just about how many hours the children spend on the internet. So what parents should do is actually look at the symptoms of the addictions. Do their children show any symptoms of addiction? For example, we are talking about the salience, whereby the media actually already dominates the thinking of the children. So the children are not doing anything, but they keep thinking about the internet. They lost interest of their hobbies because of the internet. They keep thinking about internet, right? Or we are looking at the withdrawal symptoms. For example, when you take away the smartphone from the children, they start to throw tantrum, they slam doors, they flip the tables, for example. I believe many parents have experienced these kind of things, right, from the children. So what we actually should looking is not just about time. There are many children who are spending a lot of time on the internet, for example, like watching the podcast from CAD here. So it's a good thing. It's a way for them to learn, right? So the time itself is not a good indicator. What we should be looking at is the symptoms of addictions. Is there any negative signs from the children? But of course, the parents should be more sensitive about the threats from the internet, which I think Shamir will have a lot to share about the threats.
Yes, just to add on to what Dr. Fam had just said, there are so many different threats, especially when it comes to the internet, right? Like what some of it we were talking about some of it earlier, and when we talk about how should parents, what are the signs that parents should be looking out for? One of the things, actually, I would say, which is the benefit to the child being on the internet, is that they actually confess a lot on the internet. So you've got this forum, suddenly you see people talking about, you go suddenly had a hashtag Me Too thing come out. Suddenly everybody is sharing experiences of what has happened to them. So that's actually one of the benefits of the internet. And I think people, we focus a lot of the negative, but we forget actually how the positive, how the internet can actually be such a positive tool as well. And as parents as well, if maybe a child is on Facebook, please be on Facebook as well, so that you are able to at least see what is going on, or maybe once in a while go around, stalk around a little bit. It's fine. So you actually see what's going on, and what can you do for your child as well. And I say this also because you've got parents, right, mother and father, and it's important for both parents, not as a unit but as individuals as well, to look out for certain signs in a child. Because in my experience, one of the worst things I always see is that if fathers sexually abuse their children, and sometimes the internet is a place where they feel safe enough to share this information. It's a terrible thing. I've sat down with people who have raped their own daughters, and when I asked them, I said, isn't it weird that you do it to your own child? And very interestingly, this is one of the most common replies. I said, I love my daughter, but I stopped seeing her as a daughter. I started loving her more as a girlfriend. And that's how the progress of it is. That's why the internet is a dangerous place, because that's when you get certain things. You have the dark web, which is like the most dangerous place on the internet, and you had some of the worst pedophile in the world in Malaysia at that point of time. Some of you might be familiar with the name Richard Hucker. He came to Malaysia on missionary work, and he came here doing missionary work, but he's the worst pedophile in the world. The world has never seen a pedophile as bad as him. Why? He not only sexually abused our Malaysian children, and he's done it in different parts of the world as well. He had a journal online which people used to go and read. So now, an adult who is also probably a parent, who suddenly has access to the journal, is going to probably start having thoughts about certain things, and okay, this is one of the techniques can be used. And what's worse about Richard Huckle had a book to say. Let's call it, I can't remember the title, but let's call it like this, Pedophile 101, how to be a pedophile. So he basically had a whole manual on what can you do. and how can you do it, and how can you get away with it. And please bear in mind, it's not the Malaysian authorities caught him. It was either the British or Australian authorities that caught him in Malaysia. So these are the dangers of the internet, but also it's also a space where children can sometimes go and release this information, and you can take necessary action from there. For example, the Ain issue where she shared the teacher made a rape joke in school, and then you see two parts of the world. One part is who is like, oh, congratulations, Ain, for speaking up. Second part, the teacher is suing her for defamation, and the head mistress and all, her account was supposedly hacked, where she defended the teacher, for making the rape joke. Our IGP as well at that point of time said, oh, maybe, it was just a joke. So then you have two different ends of the world over here. And when I think Pandalela spoke up and said, oh, I also was a victim at one point of time. And then you suddenly have one minister saying, oh, why are you bringing up old story? Now you report when it's new, you get hit with a backlash. When it's old story, you bring up, you get hit with a backlash. So you'll have two parts of the world always on the internet. There's one that's going to be very supportive of you, and there's one that's just going to do whatever they can to bring you down. And I think it's important as well to make sure that you try to take the good from it and really push the bad aside.
I think that also causes somewhat of a psychological problem as well, isn't it? Knowing that, if you speak out about something that happens to you online, you will have people who are supporting you, but you will also have all the keyboard warriors who are, going against you, even if you're telling the truth sometimes, and that kind of stops people from actually telling their side of the story because of the backlash that they may receive, isn't it? Okay, so as parents, now this is the magic question. Is it wrong to monitor what our children are doing online? Now, both of you have mentioned, either stalk your children or make sure you watch whatever you're doing, or, observe what they're doing online. But if we're dealing with a little older children, like for instance, like in their teenage years, perhaps, they might feel like it's an invasion of privacy because, back then we never knew privacy because our parents would have slapped us if we asked for privacy at the age of 16, But these days, children are different. They're a lot more mature, more advanced as well. So is it wrong for parents to monitor what our children are doing online?
Well, I think it's fine. Go ahead, stalk your kids. Privacy and all, that's out the door as long as they're staying under my roof. So it's the same
I think
thing.
you may have just lost a lot of teenagers following you if you're on social media. Because that is, it's very true. What Meg says is very true because this is the challenge that parents face. For example, just to add to what Meg has said. Facebook. Okay, the moment you friend them on Facebook, they move to another platform. And the adults, people like me, I can't keep up. You move from Facebook, you move to something else. Now it's TikTok, and what else is going to come? They just keep moving.
You see, that's why they have Finsta too, Father. So that Instagram, you friend your parents. Finsta, your parents don't know what you're doing.
I don't even know what Finsta is anyway. I think I should go now. I need a course. But do you think that open conversations with the children is something that parents should be doing and talk to them, rather than barring them? I'm not sure whether this is the right thing, but whether if you keep barring them, they will just keep moving from one place to another. To have open conversations and to tell them, these are the dangers, to educate them. Of course, it may not be successful. Does that have a more lasting effect rather than stalking them? I use the word stalking them.
I think Dr. Fam might be able to add to that, but just before he adds on, I just like to share actually to all the parents listening, if you want to, like what Farah said, you go on Facebook, either they will put you in a different category of friends, or Instagram as well, so you don't really get to see all that content. But what you can do, and this is a very interesting tip, you can download, if you're using Android, you can download something called Google Family Link, which basically gives you access to their phone and their devices. You can see everything that they're doing on there without really asking, hey, give me your phone, let me see what you're doing. So you're stalking them without them knowing it. So that's one way. It's Google
in the name of security, is it, Shamir?
In the name of security, yes.
And so peace of mind for parents.
It is actually. So uh, that's what I think. I think as much as I do agree with father as well as having these conversations are important, but nonetheless, I've sat down with a lot of juveniles, and as much as, and some of the juveniles, I have to tell you, they are the nicest people when you sit and have one-on-one conversations with them. You can never comprehend that these kids are able to do such a thing. And some of them have murdered people. And in your mind, you're thinking, no way this kid can do it, because so polite, very well mannered, when they speak a lot of respect, speak very well as well, they're well educated, but yet they have this. So as much as we have that conversation with kids as well, and treat them as adults to a certain extent, of course it opens and it helps open a line of communication in case the kid is in trouble or anything. But you have to understand, as we were teens as well at one point of time, and I'm sure you would have lied to your parents at one point of time. So as much as, and I say this because I've sat down with some of these juveniles and all, nicest people when you talk to them, and you never, and I don't blame the parents for not believing that their children have done committed such a crime, because when I sit down with them as well, like no way they would have done such a thing, but yet they have, and they admit to doing it. It's just that you are a different person from your parents than you are with your friends. So yeah, I think Dr. Fam would maybe have more things to add to this.
Yeah, I want to echo with Shamir's point as well about the monitoring. Well, they do have a lot of applications that can help parents to monitor for the online activities for the children, right? So even for TVs nowadays, actually, we can set limits as to what content they can access to. For YouTube, we do have a YouTube Kids, for example. Even for PlayStations, we can set restrictions on what are the contents the children can access to. So, but sadly to say, nowadays the children are really, really smart, and they know exactly how to bypass all these restrictions. So it's no surprise that many parents actually have felt being outsmarted by their children, whereby no matter how hard they try to invest time to learn about the technologies, they set for the rules, some of the children, they know exactly how to bypass them. For one reason, as Father mentioned just now, restrictions somehow may not be as effective as communication with the children, right? So there are actually a few methods for parents to monitor for their children's online activities. One definitely is restrictions. So which is what we call as a restrictive mediation. So parents are going to set rules of what children can do, what children cannot do on the internet. So this will include for amounts, like how much time they can spend online, what are content they can access to, where is the context they can use the internet, for example. Could they use their smartphone during dinner, for example, or could they use their smartphone before they complete their homework, for example? Or as to the parent might set rule about the cyber safety as well, as to what content they can upload to the internet, what information they can share to the internet, like the home address. Is it safe to share the home address? Is it safe to share your identity card number in the internet, for example? So parents do share of this set of these rules that restrict the online activities of the children. But of course, the parents need to communicate with their children about the rules as well. So it's not like they just set the rules and yeah, that's it. You have to go with the rules. The parents should discuss, explain the rule to the children. Why is it important that we have all this rule? What is the reason for us to have this rule? So actually, it is a good opportunity for parents to somehow it's a good opportunity for guidance and education, whereby parents can educate the children about the cyber safety, what are the harms for the children, for example. For example, if you are doing this, what people can do, how people can exploit these informations and harm you, for example. And of course, parents can discuss about the negative harms of the online activities to the children as well. So rather than just setting rules, you are explaining to them what are the harms. So there are a lot of things that parents should discuss with the children rather than just set rules and you have to go with the rules. That's it. Parents should discuss with the rules with the children, so the children somehow agree to the rules. Now imagine if you set the rule but the children do not agree to the rules. Do you think that they will obey the rules? Definitely not, right? So somehow you have to reach to an agreement about what are the rules about your online activities. That is one of key that many parents fail to do so.
Theoretically, it all sounds good, but literally in the home,
easier said than done.
Exactly. With young people, with children, especially when their peers are on it, and somebody else's. I always say this. Whenever I used to compare myself with somebody else's, my father would say, "Okay, you can go and live in their house. You don't want to follow the rules here." Simple as that. And today, the pressure. I mean, the pressure to be there, to be able to have the things that others do. It's not only the pressure on young people or children, the pressure on parents to provide. It's also there, because whether it's PS1, then it's PS2, then you need PS3, then you need 4. It's a never-ending thing, isn't it? The pressure to provide for. Parents don't want children to be left behind. Young people want to be able to compete with their peers, and more things are all going online. That's the thing. So I was just thinking, in terms of, I just wonder what kind of a generation are we creating. Of course, none of us really know what's going to be. Is that something that for us to be concerned about? That today, I've always this concern when you're online like this, like we're communicating. Will we forget how to have human interaction? Will we forget how to play with one another? Would we forget how to solve problems with one another? I was thinking earlier just now, when you play in the padang, you fight. We know how to solve the problem. I mean, we kind of next day everything's solved. We're back to the playing football. We somehow were able to cope in different ways. But does it create an individualized generation where you are just interacting with a screen? That human skills, should we be concerned about? And how do we? I don't like the word compensate, but how do we supplement in the development of children all these other skills, other human skills, apart from interacting with someone on the cyberspace? Dr. Fam, sorry, it sounds very complicated, but I think you know what I mean. Are the next generation losing that human skills?
Yes, Father. So I do agree that we put a lot of emphasis about the academic. We put a lot of emphasis about the digital skills nowadays. This is because, well, when we go to job recruitment sites like job streets, we can see that they want applicants that know about digital skill. They want applicants that know about data analysis. That's why the parents are like, we must make sure that our children can compete with others. So many parents put heavy emphasis on this skill, but forgetting about the human skill, like communications. So actually, there are ways that parents can discuss about the communication skill at least in the internet setting as well. For example, what comments you can put on the comments box, and when it goes public, what impacts we give to others. Will it bugs the others? Will it make others happy, for example? So that the children are more aware of the impacts of everything they do. So by sending a message to others, will it influence the emotions of others? How will the others feel? Can it help you to build for friendship, for example? So all of these things, actually, the parents can somehow help the children to learn about this skill. And not to forget that actually, these are about the verbal communications, not to forget about the non-verbal communications as well, because parents are somehow the role model of the children, right? So I can imagine that a number of parents nowadays, we are working online, so we definitely spend a lot of time in front of the screen. And because me, myself, is working online, so I do have difficulties to distinguish between work life and my family time. So I find myself like looking at a screen even after work, sometimes replying for emails, sometimes like just for entertainment. So I was looking at the screen as well. So all of these are actually in the eyes of the children. So children are looking at us, and it will somehow give them a sense that it is actually a acceptable norms already. Well, my parents are doing this, why can't I do this as well? So we, as a role model, actually we should do the best thing for our children as well. So rather than just spending time on the screen, I know it's entertaining and it's actually very stressful to work online. I know, but spend some time with your kids physically.
Without the screen.
Exactly. I remember there's one parent that shared with me the way they communicate at home is by calling. They call by their phones. So it's time for dinner. Come from the room now. Instead of just knocking their doors and hey, it's time for dinner, they're using the phone call.
The house is so huge that they can't communicate with one another. They need to call one another.
They need the telecoms, intercoms.
But that is the challenge. I talk to some people in HR and all that, and they tell me that as an individual, a lot of people are very, very competent in their field, but they don't know how to work with other people. They don't know how to work in a team sometimes. The challenges, that's the reality. That's the generation that we are concerned about. Even I mean, I talked a little bit about going to mass online now. Everybody's in the comfort of their home. And when they come back to an on-site church, will they remember how to communicate with other people, to interact with other people? I really don't know. Shamir, do you have some thoughts on that? You want to?
Not. I think Dr. Fam covered quite a bit, but I guess again, I'm sure when your parents were around, they used to make noise. Hey, why are you sitting there watching TV? Go to the padang and play, And then, so I think with every generation, there's a new challenge which they face, and that comes with the development and with the development of technology. So at the moment, as we're talking here about the dangers of online cyber threats and all, we also have to remember that there are a lot of benefits that come through it as well. Like one of the things you said, you're now able to have mass online. I'm sure pre-pandemic this wasn't even a thought. Everybody you come to church. Why you want to do it online? The feel is different when you have mass on Sunday compared to doing it online. But now, again, you need a kid who was smart enough to sit down at the computer and develop this programming in the first place. But of course, with all that as well, this is some form of communication. Now we can talk to friends overseas, and it's not expensive. And actually, just this morning, I'm just chatting with a friend, and we were talking about how easy it is now, or how easy kids have it these days to communicate with people. We those days, you want to make a call, you must go to the STD booth or buy the card, and then you make the call, international call. It's so expensive. Go to the phone booth, put coin, and then they'll say you press the two buttons, it lasts longer. So all these hacks and all. But now, it's so easy. You've got WhatsApp call and all. We have StreamYard. It's free. You got Facebook Live. So it suddenly has opened up. To me, I feel it has opened up ways of communication as well. As much as, and I totally agree, that it can also have the negative impact of making people forget how to communicate as well. Everything now, that there always needs to be some kind of bit of tact when you talk to people and you're trying to compromise about certain things. And maybe somehow that is lost in translation if it's done online or through the keyboard and you're typing. And also, verbal communication is somehow still the best. And of course, you physically see a person, you can understand, facial cues, emotions, and all. Those things are, of course, easier to be translated when you see someone face to face in comparison with doing it online. But I guess it's just a matter of time to be figured that out, lah.
I think I think the best solution right now would be moderation, isn't it? I mean, there are benefits and there are also dangers of being in the cyber world. It depends on how it's used or how we solve the problem. Like, for instance, going back to the beginning stages when our children fumble over something online or they read something online, right? How do we as parents explain to them what they've seen or what they've heard or what they've read?
Okay, I think first of all, we need to verify that the information is either right or wrong ourselves. Every time I see, especially this one of the things which actually annoyed me a lot during the pandemic is that people just kept forwarding stuff. Whether it's true or not, different. They say, Namai. And someone told me this, when somebody forwarded me something and I said, hey, this has already been said that it is false. I said, no, Namai, okay, just good to be prepared. I said, no, you're creating unnecessary panic.
Correct.
So if we ourselves as adults cannot do that, then how do we expect children to do that? So I think before we even expect kids to do that, we need to be able to communicate properly first. Information, and if you see something which you think is not right, how do you tell your child? Earlier father was talking about the communication that you need to have with children. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm sure somewhere in the Bible that there's this line that says, the tongue has the power of life and death, or something like. I'm not so well versed, but I've seen it somewhere in the Bible that it says that. So if we communicate it right, it's going to be beautiful. You're going to be able to actually instill certain qualities in your child and yourself as well. But again, like what it says, the tongue has the power of life and death. So if you do it wrong, then
the repercussions will be dangerous.
Yes. So maybe that's something that we need to work on ourselves first. And I guess one of the things, for example, if you're talking about conversations, and doing it right, is platforms such as this. I really must applaud you all for having this platform, and I see you all have done it for quite a while. This is episode 86 or something like that, and it's good because now you see you're finding ways of communicating positive things and important messages to people out there, to kids out there, if they are watching or they are listening, to families out there. So again, we are using technology for it, and we are using the positive side of technology for things like this. So yeah, good job, guys.
I think like Meg said, everything in moderation. Even anything that is good, if it's taken excessively, it becomes bad, isn't it?
Like vitamin A that Dr.
Or
Paul said,
vitamin
right?
A or whatever. I mean, you always say like, a glass of red wine is good for your cardiovascular, but it doesn't mean if you take a bottle, it's much better either. So some people
We
like to
amp up
think,
our bottle of wine, lah, Father.
but it is
Extra
true.
protection.
It is true. In what Shamir was saying, that I think the communication, sometimes parents do not know how to have that conversation, the difficult conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, I always see this, when they have difficult conversation about religion, parents said, "I'll go and ask father," and they kind of like wash their hands. So I think these are the hard conversations that parents need to have and to build that trust, so that there's nothing that it is done, in the sense that they're hiding. Like I said, it's now you friend them on one platform, and if there's no open conversation, they just move to another one, and they are so knowledgeable what's out there and their friends. As I said, I myself don't know many of these things. I will be the first one to claim ignorance. I think Facebook is quite good enough, and I think Facebook kind of only attracts a certain people of a certain age and a certain generation. Maybe I should have a little course with Mag. Mag will tell me what are the new social media platforms. But if I were to ask, maybe Shamir, if there are three things, for a young person going online, what should they be wary of? What should they watch out for? The top three things for young people. For young people.
Okay, one I think is always to watch out for sexual content, any form of sexual content. And two is, if you're on any platform where a person which is maybe not your age group is chatting with you, please be very wary of that, no matter what they say the benefits are. And the third thing, I guess, is I think the third thing will have to go back to the parents, in the sense where parents have to at least have that open communication or monitor their children's activities online. I think that's very important. So these are probably two to children, one to the parent.
Yeah. Dr. Fam, do you have anything to support that or anything to add to that?
I want to add a little bit point about the go back to parents, because, well, parents tend to use some not so good example. For example, parents might say, "Oh, if you do this wrong, the police will come and catch you." For example, many Chinese parents would say this, right? So this gives the children a bad impression about the police. Like when we do something, the police will come and catch us. They're the bad guy, actually. So parents should not use this kind of information to the children. Same thing, parents should open up more conversations with the children, so that the children know that it's safe for me to share everything with my parents, no matter it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Even if I break a glass, for example, the first thing I do is not to clean it up, is to tell my parents that I'm sorry that I break this glass. I will try to clean it up, for example, so that the children know that it's actually safe to share everything with the parents. There's one method that parents can encourage for this open conversation is involve children in everything. So in Malaysia, our parenting style is usually more like one directional. Parents give orders, the children have to do everything and follow everything the orders, right? One way is we involve children in the decision making. So in the setting of family rules, for example, to how many hours you can spend online, for example, you might consider to involve children in the decision making, like how many hours do you think is appropriate for a day? So after including for the online classes, I think we already go back to physical classes, so it's no longer a concern. But for example, for entertainment, for you to search for information, to do for homework, for example, how many hours is appropriate for you, for example? So instead of just one directional, you should have only 2 hours per day online. We involve the children in the conversations, we involve them in the decision making, so that the children should know, okay, it's actually safe for me to share my opinions with my parents, so that they will be open up. Instead of keep everything to their secrets or to share to their friends. In fact, there's a research which shows that, well, children are more willing to share to their friends as compared to parents. So that is not a good sign, actually. So if you ask me, I would definitely say, well, try to have a open conversation with your children and involve them in almost everything.
I think that's a brilliant point. I guess as I think as Asian parents, many times we go like, we're the parents, you're the child, you listen to what I tell you, okay? Because if I say 2 hours, that's all you're gonna get. But if they feel like they have a part of that whole family making decision, they feel responsible and they feel like you trust them. So you kind of build that trust with them as well. And I think it's a bit difficult for us as parents to do that. Many times you're like, why? He's just a child. Let's not, what would he know about this, right? So, I mean, Dr. Pham, your points were brilliant, and I think we should learn how to do that as well. Because if they are afraid to come to us, then they are going to turn to someone else, and that's where the danger of what Shamir has brought up with sexual grooming, where someone else actually is that person you can talk to. I found a friend who can listen to me. I found a friend who knows what I'm going through, and therefore I trust this person more than I trust my parents. So I think that's one of the most dangerous things that could happen to our children. And I think as a parent, I think I fear that the most, because if he has found someone else to turn to and not coming to us, then we're not doing a good job right now, aren't we? Father Clarence, any other questions that you
No,
have today?
no, Meg, I wanted to ask you. I know your son and Steve, the husband, they play the game together. Have you
Yes.
found that to be an effective way where actually a parent is involved in the gaming world? I mean, I see both of them having a great time playing together. I don't see you.
Once in a while, I'm roped into playing games with them, Father, but I don't like playing all the shooting games and stuff that they play. So I avoid playing with them. But I think it's a good thing for them to spend time with each other because they both love playing games, and my son loves it so much. It's just that sometimes one can get more competitive than the other, and then it becomes an argument. So but it's nice to see that they're growing, and it kind of bonds their relationship as well. So in a way, it's a good thing. Like Shamir said, at the end of the day, e-gaming right now is a multi-million-dollar business. So hey, who knows, someday, hopefully. Well, yeah.
So I guess listening to you and listening to others, one way of parenting is, of course, you can't avoid
Yeah.
this. You can't ban them from getting involved. Now you see the parent getting involved in it, so they're doing it together. Uh, that is another way of moderating this. That you just don't say, okay, here's the device, here's the game, just go ahead and do what you want, and don't bother me. I got other things to do, kind of thing. But it's a hands-on approach. Let's do it together. I'm not banning you, but let's do it together. So this is, I think, a great example of that, how we could moderate this. Because I believe that we have come to a point where there's no turning back. We cannot go back to the to the the days when
Yesteryears.
to say that no, you can't have this, you can't play this, you can't do that. Because if you don't do it in your home, then they will do it in their friends' homes. When
Correct.
they go, they're in somebody else's. So rather and you get involved. Just listening to both Dr. Pham and Shamir. Yes, there are a lot of dangers. A lot of doesn't mean that now it's time to shut down everything. Sell off your devices or give them away. But I think getting involved in it as parents is something very important. Either it's conversation or whether it is playing the games with them and knowing what they're doing. I don't want to use the word monitoring because I will lose a lot of young people coming to church after this priest is so outdated, say to monitor them. But some level of monitoring. I mean, today there are softwares that you can do parental control of what they can access. Your router, you can. I that's what I'm told, at least, because you do that, those kind of things. I think having the conversations are very important.
Yeah.
Open conversations to educate, because education is for life, isn't it? You ban them, it's just it's a temporary measure. When you educate them for life, and they begin to understand. But I think it's the same with religion too. I always believe that when you start imposing things on them, They will do it because you tell them to do it, or because they are under your roof. But the moment they leave, they just
All
do other
hell breaks
things.
loose.
Exactly. All values, all virtues, all go berserk because it was imposed. But if you communicate and you convince them and you talk to them with some controls, I mean, you make the rules together, wouldn't it, Dr. Fam Shamir? You make the rules together, rather than like how we grew up. I tell you the rules, you just follow. And there's no why. For us, I mean, I think for us there was no why. You would just follow.
Yeah.
That's all. But I think kids nowadays ask the parents why. It's challenging parenting in this generation, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, thank you very much. I mean, it's been very enlightening conversation with both Dr. Pham and Shamir.
Yeah, I think they've drawn a very clear picture for us, what we should be looking out for, and what are the benefits that can help our children as well. At the end of the day, it's not going to be easy lah. Parenting in the 21st century is not easy with so many different challenges, and the internet is just one of them. But I think, like, for us, what we started with was we actually told our child that we monitor everything he does online, so he knows. But Father, you're absolutely right. The more you tell them no, they cannot do it, they will find a way to do it, either when they're out of the house or through someone else's device. So it's better to actually build that relationship, that communication, and that transparency as well. So we have come to the end of the program already. Before we let you go, Dr. Pham and Shamir, do you have anything to add to this whole conversation? Maybe a roundup of maybe your advice for our parents or our viewers this morning.
I think first of all, like what Dr. Pham has shared as well, and Father, and also yourself as well, is that the conversations are very important, and with the progress of technology, it's important for us to keep an eye out on our kids, but also very important for us to at least have that honest conversation. And so it's an open book. If there's anything that's, and it's important for us as well to educate our children regarding sexual predators at a young age. When we grew up, there was no such thing as talking about sexual predators or anything like that. You go Form 3, then you learn something about it. But again, you don't learn about sexual predators. So it's important that from a young age, they are educated about this sort of thing. But again, I think all in all, I just like to thank all of you all for organizing this sort of talks. To really give the awareness to parents out there, and also all the listeners and the viewers out there. So thank you very much for the great effort that you all are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shamir. Dr. Pham?
Yeah, I want to echo to Shamir's point as well. So if you ask me, I would say my advice to parents is always to engage and to involve in the life of the children. Do not just let them to educate themselves. Do not expect the children to grow by themselves. We as a parent, we should somehow engage in their life. We should help them. We should take care of them instead of just feeding them, right? So yeah, thank you very much for the sessions, and I love every piece of this session.
I think we've loved it too, and I think we learned a lot, right, Father, through this whole conversation. Because you can watch, you can see our facial expressions when you guys are talking, like, oh, we didn't think about that. Yeah, this happens too. Anyway, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Catholics at Home this beautiful Saturday morning. A big thank you to Dr. Pham and Shamir as well. You can re-watch this podcast anytime you prefer if you miss most of it, and of course don't forget to share it as well. Next week we'll be back with another topic, and for now we're just going to wish you a fantastic weekend ahead, and we'll end with a little prayer. Father?
Name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation. We pray for all families today in a very special way, for all our young people, that they may have the ability to discern for what is good and what is bad, that you will always watch over them, keep them safe from all the dangers, the dark side of the cyber world. We pray that you will always lead us with the power of the Holy Spirit. We pray for those who are struggling, that they may find peace, that they may find the right path to come back to the truth, to be able to discover you, the fullness of life and truth that comes from you alone. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So that brings us to the end of the show. Father Clarence, your last parting words for this morning's session?
No, just to say thank you very much to Farm and Shamir for taking time. I know Saturday morning, like we talked earlier, is maybe your downtime, your lepak
Family
breakfast time,
time.
your family time, but taking time to have this conversation with us has been very enlightening. Now I know when parents ask me, I said go and watch the podcast. All the answers are there. So I have now an excuse. But thank you very much, and Mag too, for taking time on Saturday morning to be with us. We truly appreciate your presence here.
Wonderful. So, once again, thank you so much from all of us at Catholics at Home. We wish you a fantastic weekend and God bless. Bye bye now.
Bye, everyone.